What's going on? Peace through trade. My name is Arai Beckman, one of the founding partners. Today, our live stream is to talk about SpaceX, quantum computing, and the future of cybersecurity. So, SpaceX IPO'd. That's going to be an exciting thing to talk about. There have been some very recent White House posts about quantum computing. Some of them have been a little cryptic and have already caught the internet on fire with comments and resharing of the post to try and figure out what's really going on. I want to hear your thoughts as well in the comments. Also, recently, I've been having some conversations with senior leaders in technology and in an advisory role to governments. And I'm going to share with you some of the information about what's coming with cybersecurity and the global AI race right now, because there's some great information that might help evolve your perspective about what's really going on and why. And then finally, I'm going to share with you my thoughts, just an awareness of why we're doing what we're doing with AI, why the sheer scale of it is happening right now, the parts that probably don't make sense to you as to how they'll actually work for the planet and help ensure that we all thrive while embodying this next evolution of this industrial, if you will, evolution of AI, and what we can do together as a global community to help. So that's pretty cool. All right, now to begin with, I am going to share my screen with you guys. So check this out. All right, so here we go. So you should already be able to see my screen now. So for those of you that didn't see it, and I would imagine most of you did, SpaceX went public. The largest IPO by market cap in history, in the history of the stock markets. Now, it's received quite a bit of positive praise, perhaps some negative praise. And I mean, what doesn't, right? You could be the president of the United States of America and you're still going to get mixed news. 2026 is about some pretty, I don't want to say divided camps, but some pretty uniquely focused camps. You've got, in America, you've got the left, the right, the middle. In finance, you've got finance. We have Web3, blockchain, AI. Now, SpaceX is an interesting one. The worst commentary you could hear would be that I've heard, that it's hyperinflated, it's based on a future dream, and at best, it's a telecommunications company. Now, the reasoning behind that, you can see here it opened at about 160, went up to this chart showing 200. I saw a little higher than that, maybe 210, 213, and it came right back down more or less to 156 as of today. So what is SpaceX? What is coming? Why was it one of the largest IPOs in the history of humanity? And, you know, is it sustainable with a market cap already of 1.15? You can see up here. Let me zoom into this more so for you guys so you can really see this. 1.15 trillion. There it is. Is it worth it? Is it justified? And what's coming for the future of SpaceX? Now, what's interesting is I've decided to share this live with you guys, sharing with you something I think that's very much related to SpaceX that's not going to be publicly talked about. At least I haven't seen it in SpaceX's disclosed filings, statements, press releases, or what's coming. But I think the first two, and actually three things I shared with you, each of the bullet points of this live, SpaceX, quantum, and global future AI race and cybersecurity race, are all actually related. So it's possible that sometimes there's things that the markets know about publicly, and there's actually really valuable, very long-term value things that the public markets don't know of for a variety of reasons. I'm not talking insider trading or getting one over on the public share purchasers and public markets. In this case, when I refer to SpaceX, quantum, and global cybersecurity and the AI race, I'm referring to matters of probably national security and global strategy, not only for America, but also the most recent conference and summit that President Donald Trump went to, the G7. So SpaceX, is it overvalued at 1.15 trillion? That is incredible. That is, by orders of magnitude, a higher value than anything we've ever had before. There's also very few of the total shares that have been released and are available publicly. There's some big criticism that a very large percent of the shares, I think, and these aren't absolutely accurate, but my understanding is this only represents about 5% of the total shares, that Elon and other holders have about 95% behind the scenes. There's criticism for genuinely good historic reasons that they could come in and dump on the market, but I don't think they would. I don't think that's deserved with Elon in his track record. When you look at Tesla, he's been a legend. He is one of the most accomplished and successful entrepreneurs in the history of our species, and at least this current written historic record that we have. At the same time, I know that he'll be criticized, and I've seen quite often how various journalists will constantly express that he's foolish, that he doesn't know what he's doing, and that whatever the next thing he's doing proposed is will fail. It's quite amazing how opinionated some of these journalists feel that they can and should be when criticizing the wealthiest man on the planet, not only someone who became wealthy through a commodity, someone who became wealthy from innovating, not just someone that became wealthy from innovating in one thing, but became wealthy from innovating in multiple, uniquely, incredibly innovative, precedent-making, earth-shattering industries. So for me, it's pretty hard to criticize someone like Elon. I don't know what I don't know, and I think he's done a brilliant job today. I'm going to take some of my vitamins there. So Elon Musk, SpaceX, right now they have deals with Starlink. They've done a deal with Anthropic. I know there's some drama going on between Elon and OpenAI, and what was very interesting was he decided to go all in with Anthropic. There's also the opportunity for Anthropic to go IPO in the near future. I would imagine even potentially in this next quarter of this year, as well as Anduril, which is really interesting. Now, what's really interesting about that as well is that why are all of these space exploration, space technologies, AI, and defense also potentially going public all at the same time? Here's why I think that although it's hard to wrap one's mind around this incredible, possibly paradigm evolving or absolutely foolish failure of a market cap of SpaceX, it's very hard to wrap one's mind around it. But we'll get into that and how it continues on to this next topic, and I'll help bring it all together with you guys here. So check this out. The next thing I wanted to show you was officially posted on the Department of War account. Okay, so these are X posts on these official accounts. Okay, so Department of War, the White House, okay, on X. Officially the White House. Okay, you can see this. Department of War. Officially the Department of War. Another White House post. I'll get into this. And then this White House post. Okay. Here's how I think this all ties together. So the Department of War said in a post, and you gotta I'm looking at this through my browser, so it's a little jacked. June 22nd, yesterday, 2.3 million views already. Are you enjoying the show? Refill your popcorn. You'll love this next part. American, Q in brackets, quantum dominance. The White House posted, White House will be posting Q today. And then officially, under President Trump's leadership, quantum is making a massive leap, and America is at the forefront of these innovations and groundbreaking technologies. President Trump signs executive orders unleashing American quantum technologies innovation. Okay? Let me know what you think this one's about. Shows here 47, Q, the date, this. That's of reference to anything that anyone's aware of. Feel free to let me know in the comments. If you're watching this live, take a moment. If you love Piece of Trade and if you're Really excited to help this movement and our global community to succeed. Wait till after I'm done the stream also. Post a comment on the replay. Let me know your thoughts about what that means. And then as an example, I also pulled this up for you guys so you could see this. A recent data center that's being produced here by the famous, some would say infamous, Kevin O'Leary, a Canadian, fellow Canadian, Shark Tank, most famously known for Shark Tank, and his most recent data center plans, which is one of the largest, I believe it would be the largest ever constructed. And that's going to be already approved in the state of Utah. And I want to tie that in to why I think we're seeing SpaceX, quantum, and AI. So this is entering into my opinion. If this turns out to be accurate and we get more evidence to support that as time goes on, I will share that with you guys. But for right now, just let's see if I can, share some insights that have occurred through some meetings and some conversations that we've been having. So right now, the Department of War, okay, and the White House are posting about Q, and they posted this most recent executive order that President Trump signed. Okay, so SpaceX, quantum, AI. Quantum, what is quantum? Now, what's really cool, shout out to 55 North, more recent friends of mine based in Copenhagen. They're the world's largest quantum fund. I actually spent the better part of a week with them in April at EarthX in Dallas, Texas. Got to drop in with the amazing team there. They have an incredible team. They're, my opinion, not financial advice, appear to be a great fund, and we're looking at it. And I'm going to be actually going there in the fall also to visit and do further research. So I just recently started to get pretty read in, if you will, to quantum and what's at the bleeding edge, what the space that the largest fund in the world focused on quantum computing is looking at. So that's pretty cool. That's a pretty good place to get your information from on a topic. So I happen to know that behind the scenes, quantum and AI and probably SpaceX are actually pretty relevant to the state of the world in 2026 and where we're going over the next decade, 15, 20 years, from a perspective of, I don't want to say war, but I want to say the global battlefield, if you will. Now, I'm one of the founding partners of Peace Through Trade. If you don't know that and know nothing about the project, understand we truly envision a world where in the future we have world peace initially brought there through trade. We built a whole ecosystem for consumers. It's our goal to do some work with governments also. It's been stealth mode, launching in the future, and we're excited to help empower sustainability, humanitarian, and equitable access through a global ecosystem that does adhere to and follow the laws and regulations, KYC, AML, all that good stuff. If you're interested in learning more, check out peacethroughtrade.com, sign up, become a part of the newsletter. We're doing live monthly updates on most recent advisors coming on board, government things that are in progress, cool stuff that we don't completely want to share to the public as of yet until we're ready to come out of stealth mode, announce our official ICO date, and begin promoting it. So why SpaceX? Why quantum? Why AI? Well, imagine, if you will, I know we're all aware of quantum helping us become more productive at whatever it is we do in the day. Most of you use it for email. Those of you that are already using Claude Cowork, good on you. And the developers that are using Claude Dev and all these amazing automated agentic plugins, congratulations. You are probably crushing it and hopefully experiencing a lot more productivity in very otherwise previously less, like I would say meaning, what's the word I'm trying to say? Meaningo? No. Less significant tasks. And at the same time, if you're using AI a lot, whether you're writing, whether you're developing, whether you're writing code, you still recognize it hasn't quite yet hit the point where it'll take over the world and remove absolutely everyone's jobs. However, we're getting closer and closer to AI reshaping the industrial evolution of how our workforce operates and what it can do, what it can't do, what it can do better, what it ultimately multiplies for us in our productivity society-wide within companies, and how that'll evolve and affect the world. So most of us are focused on it that way. How can we use it? Because those that are using it the best are more than likely going to be the most successful companies. And that's really just become the competitive landscape. If you're not using AI and agentically using AI to the maximal advantage for your company, it stands to reason that your company will lose to a company that is. Okay, so we'll put that aside. Now, what you might not have been thinking though, was from the perspective of, in the Web3 world, they call it game theory. And it's very likely you weren't thinking about things from this perspective because the average person doesn't think of things from this perspective. I didn't think of things from this perspective until I had, conversations with others, and I have for quite some time now over the past few years. Prior to that, I didn't think about it either. But there's this thing called game theory, AKA like how can someone hack or compromise, exploit, take over your thing, destroy your thing, or make money destroying your thing. That's how Web3 refers to that whole process I just described as game theory. Now, globally, national intelligence, the Department of War in the United States, as I referenced here, the G7 nations, they're always thinking from that perspective. Who are the enemies on the battlefield? How could they defeat us? And I'll give you a great example from the past. This is going to sound maybe tangential. It's completely relevant. The nuclear arms race of the Cold War. That was the most similar existential threat to the planet and humanity that I could think of when relating to AI. Right now, a lot of you also are, the worst case scenario fears that came out were Terminator, and list goes on. Also, more recently, I showed you guys the Kevin O'Leary Utah data center project. There are some sincere and very valid, genuine concerns, which we can get into later, more so about sustainability. Can we even afford the environmental impact? This isn't like crazy woke climate activism, people that we might not totally agree with. This is like, holy moly, is this going to remove all the water from the Salt Lake of Utah, rendering it unlivable for all the residents? This is kind of situations where the public are dealing with and people are trying to look at and understand. And it did receive quite a bit of pushback and protests and people showing up to city halls and town halls and doing everything they could to shut it down, because the water level usage looked not sustainable. We'll deal with that more in the future. Back to the battlefront of 2026 and how this has to do with SpaceX, quantum, cybersecurity, and the race for AI. Well, the nuclear arms race was this relational example I was going to give you. So at that time, if you could imagine, and most of you have probably seen the film, one of my favorite actors ever, Cillian Murphy, shared the film of the making of the first atomic he was the lead actor in the film of the making of the first atomic bomb. And he played the role of the scientist, and they showed how dramatic it was at that time. Huge moral conflict. Do I wish to create something like this? If I don't and the bad guys do, and they have it first, they're probably going to use it. So should we create it? But if we do create it, that's going to be hugely morally conflicting. I would never have wanted to be put in that position, obviously. Can I live with myself if I do that? But if I don't, and this situation just goes back and forth. We probably wouldn't feel great to use that, but if we don't make it, the bad guys will. And if the bad guys will, and they use it on us, we can't afford that. That's an existential crisis. Nuclear's obviously devastatingly harmful, as everyone watching this live knows, right? In the 60s and 70s, though, they knew it was horrible, and all nations knew it was horrible. Everyone knew that no one should be doing it, and if anyone did it, that they shouldn't be using it. Okay, that was the general consensus. And as one would hope would happen, you would imagine, I know a lot of the younger people watching this would go, well, if that was the case, I'm sure they got together, talked about it, and everyone agreed not to do it, right? Wrong. That's not how we have functioned to date as a species. I think in the future, we can and will get better, and we will evolve from that. But no, unfortunately, that is not how we've operated and acted. Instead, everyone went sort of, yeah, I get it. We shouldn't use it. And then behind the scenes, hey, sprint to get this up and running. We need to have nuclear power as soon as humanly possible before they get it, whoever they is in their mind. And the truth is, every nation, including North Korea, went out and pursued nuclear power. America, at that time, the Soviet Union, countries in Europe, countries in Asia, China, even North Korea, as I've stated. Now, once everyone had it, which was absolutely unacceptable, couldn't use it. If we start using it, you have all-out nuclear fallout. We lose the planet. We die off as a species. Absolutely useless. Probably no point in building that weapon in the first place if you had any foresight. Instead, how cool would it have been if maybe we spent those monies working together more so? But that's a different topic. They ended up doing it. But what happened was everyone realized none of them could use it. They were in a bind. So what happened? They came together, and the nuclear accords, a meeting of all major nation states and their leaders, came together and agreed that none of them would ever use it against each other. Ultimately, it's too devastating. Can't use it. Okay. So just looking back at that as an exact scenario that's already happened, knowing our history, perhaps that'll help us predict our future. The exact same thing is happening right now in the race for AI, and most importantly, AGI. And there's other definitions and other acronyms that people have thrown out there, like artificial general intelligence, that's AGI. I've heard some people that feel even cooler and bleeding edge saying, oh, you're just talking about AGI. What about ASI? Artificial super intelligence. Sometimes there's acronyms people will just make up to sound cooler and more in the know. We don't necessarily publicly, as far as we're aware, have AGI yet, let alone an ASI or any other additional acronym that would make it even cooler AI. The point being is that the battlefront of AGI is almost the exact same scenario we went through planet-wide for the nuclear arms race. Right now, America, Canada, the G7 absolutely feel that they need to do everything in their power to sprint towards AGI first. I'm not going to name names. We're a geopolitically project. I'm a geopolitically neutral. Peace Through Trade is a geopolitically neutral project. I am a geopolitically neutral investor. I'm Canadian. Lots of investments in America, Southeast Asia, all over. Latin America, Singapore, geopolitically neutral. But America, Canada, the G7, they're absolutely thinking to themselves that they need to get to AGI first before the bad guys. I'm not going to label or name bad guys. But the thinking is whoever gets to AGI first potentially has the power to turn off the world. That's a generalization. Turn off the world. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you have AGI first and you're a country and you want to harm your enemy, what if you could turn off, as an example, the New York Stock Exchange with a concentrated attack that comes in from AGI for even a few days? Well, things get back up and running, but 72 hours, markets in turmoil, run on the bet. You never know. Economic warfare is possibly on the table in the race towards AGI if the bad guys get there first. And there's lots of books out there you could read how there have been many different battle planes, many different battlefronts, and many different weapons and tactics used, not just physical harm throughout the ages. So America and the G7 are absolutely sprinting to get to AGI first. Now, the question we should be asking ourselves as a community here at Peace or Trade or wherever you're coming in from is exactly what does SpaceX, quantum, and the race for AI have to do with each other? How are they interrelated? Well, it's a variety of reasons. Quantum's pretty cool. When you get to understand more about quantum, you understand that right now, today, the absolute practical applications, what my friends at 55 North were telling me, are not that great. But we've already lived through the history where we saw computers, which could basically do very simple math equations that took up the size of a room or an entire building in the 60s and 70s, have evolved quite a bit down to even just your iPhone, right? What will quantum become as it evolves over the next few decades? Could it solve complex issues? Will there be a future iPhone 28 quantum chip built into the iPhone? You never know. The way things are going, yeah, probably. How does that work with SpaceX? Well, you guys have heard that SpaceX is just launching rockets and they are deploying Starlink satellites, and they're hopeful to do some space-based AI data centers. So you've got the cooling and it's less expensive and it gets free solar energy. So there's some real practical things that you guys are hearing about. Also, the way that information is shared throughout the whole world, the way that you're able to see my live stream right now is through this magical thing called the internet. Well, SpaceX, as it's deploying Starlinks, as it's deploying additional satellites, additional space-based technology, infrastructure, data centers, that's the infrastructure, physically, digitally, if you will, that you need to do the other things that we're mentioning here, right? So quantum, global AI, AGI, and cybersecurity. So SpaceX, if I had to wager a guess, I'm not a betting man, I don't gamble. I really would prefer to only win in life, so gambling is pretty much a waste of money for me and too high of a risk. But if I had to wager a bet, I would bet you that the 1.15 trillion might be perhaps an inflated metric of global market value and global market cap. But what if America, those informed and in the know in the G7, are looking at SpaceX as the absolutely critical rails and infrastructure for the absolutely critically essential quantum computing and AI to come in the race to be the first to achieve AGI and global dominance for global cybersecurity? What if? That's just a question. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Quantum is also going to be a level of encryption in the future that we'll be able to use, and possibly for defense, possibly for security, for all things, probably. If you have quantum building algorithms and cryptography and securing things, not only could it crack codes, it could potentially be actually at the same time the best shield or defense for things. That's my simplest way of sharing that from a cybersecurity standpoint. And then also the goal is that it's going to solve some pretty cool problems for us. It's going to be able to really focus on major, impactful, very meaningful global infrastructure problems, providing solutions, and it'll be multivariate in multi-industry, but it'll be very, very cool how it gives us also the next technical advance to what we're doing. And it's not the same as AI either. Sometimes people think AI and AGI replaces quantum. It doesn't. They're two separate things. AI can be run on very powerful machines, yes, but not quantum computing. It doesn't require quantum computing, and they are separate, independent things. And then as we race for AGI, as we race in America, Canada, and the G7 to be the first to unlock that ultimate prize of having AI, well, if we also have evolved quantum, invested in its infrastructure, made sure that we're also globally dominant in that, we'll get not only the problem solving, but also the security that comes with that. Well, if we're also launching into space, the infrastructure needed to make sure we have the connectivity, needing to make sure that we're leading, the compute needed for the AI and the compute needed for the quantum. In the future, they might have space-based quantum. You never know. It's probably a thing they're looking at. But more importantly, even just the compute for the data centers, the power and the distribution and the multi-system backup approach that all things SpaceX can provide. Not to mention, who knows, they might announce in the future that they have discovered an asteroid of vibranium, something cool like that. But if you just think of it from this perspective of the current nuclear arms race, if you will, which is one of global quantum and AGI in order to be secure, innovate, solve problems, and own a dominant position on that new digital infrastructure, information battle plane, if you will, we might have a perspective that then we could seek further data and evidence together that unlocks what's really going on here. And this, believe it or not, ties back in to my original tangent of Kevin O'Leary and, telling us the hate for his mega data center as well. I'm not going to play for you what he's saying here. What I will tell Kevin, I know Kevin is very polarizing, and God bless him, good for him. That's his brand persona. He's chosen something that he feels shakes things up enough so that he stands out in your mind, and he's very unique. And whether you hate him or love him, he gets behind that brand with great consistency. So it makes you feel like it is authentic for him. And he does have some good information. He's a savvy investor. He had a very fortunate early stage thing that succeeded for him tremendously. That was great timing. But since then, he's made quite a few lucrative investments, and he's influential and of influence with his money, power, and network. So it is good, whether we like people or dislike them, to try and just listen objectively to what they're telling you is coming, because they're spending the money. And when they have tens of thousands of people working for them, they're in very good places of information. Better than you and I are looking at reels when we have a brief moment, or chatting with those that we can when they're available. Billionaires know what's coming, and you can follow their money and see absolutely what they don't believe is coming, what they know is coming. Now, with the data center, it's really interesting because from a sustainability standpoint, it's bad. I won't mention exactly which U.S. state senator from Utah I spoke to, or which former presidential candidate's son I spoke to as well. But I've been speaking to some people, and I'm trying to help them with peace through trade and sustainability figure out how we can come up with real solutions for sustainability, not only in the state of Utah, throughout America, not only in America, for the world. And I'll just give you an example. I was told, and for those of you that have been to Park City, Utah, the ski mountain, over the past few years, there's been less and less snow until, unfortunately, as of most recently, this last winter, almost no snow. That snow is usually much heavier, it freezes, and then it melts into the Great Salt Lake, and that Great Salt Lake is used by the Utah population, farming, agricultural, residential, industrial, and should this data center get pulled off, the data center, right? So the problem is, though, is that the data center, or this, not just Kevin's, most, if not all data centers, use an incredible amount of water. The bigger problem is how much water. It's actually far more than even I and most of us around the industry could have ever imagined. And that wouldn't be that big of a deal if you could run water through and it comes out and it's totally fine and safe to use in your drinking water, or in industry, or in farming and ag. It's like you could multi-use the water. The problem is right now, the way things are set up, it's coming out pretty polluted. It's using an incredible amount of it, and it's coming out pretty polluted. So the other question that you just kind of logically would ask yourself is, how can we even afford this water usage, as an example, in the state of Utah with such a large data center? And I would be more than happy, and I'm sure Kevin, to his point, I sort of went off on this tangent. I'm remembering now, I'm coming back to it. Kevin is the only sustainability focused, degree holding data center developer that I'm aware of. So he actually has, I want to say, a minor degree certificate in sustainability. Now, there could be some criticism out there that he's not using it for this, but I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt and hear what he has to say as to how he's going to address these concerns, because, the media is pretty sensational and one-sided. They're definitely going to show all the hate, the town halls, the meetings, the protests, everything. But I haven't at least heard, I'm actually going to watch this video where he's commenting on from this article here on businessinsider.com. All credit to them, June 12th published article on what his answer is, because as an example, Park City being in such dire straits, if it doesn't snow this upcoming winter, it's my understanding the following year, 2027, the lake is in really dire straits for just those existing residents, let alone the world's largest data center ever built that also needs more water, probably used than any other industrial application. And it's going to be twice the size of Manhattan. So, those are some valid questions that people are asking. Hey, Utah's already in bad straits when it comes to water. How can we even afford this and this? Is it worth it? Also, this ties into economics, and the economics of people talking about whether it's the SpaceX IPO, right, which we've already covered, or whether it's the AI industry in general. How can we afford it? And economically, are these numbers accurate? Is this overinflated? What's going on here? Is this a house of cards that are going to collapse? Well, this is just my opinion. So totally open to being wrong. And if I am, we won't continue to see more data in this direction. But once again, if we just put on the glasses of imagining the perspective of what I just shared, what if, yes, you do need standard traditional economics, of course, for the long term for things. But what if SpaceX, quantum, AI, and AI-related companies and data centers are not just a matter of commercial enterprise, technological innovation, and money for the markets, but they're also an absolutely critical to national security for not only America, but the G7. And we can't afford for them not to succeed, for them not to get the upward price momentum and volume and liquidity in the markets, for them not to get the funding that they need, and for them not to absolutely go out and dominate because it's looked at as critically urgent, like the nuclear arms race. What if? So if your thought process is that's possible, or even more, absolutely that's what's happening, then I would encourage you to look at the markets, encourage you to look at the market caps, encourage you to look at the funding, encourage you to vote with your dollars to support these industries and these projects, definitely for the remainder of the Trump administration between now and then, regardless of what your perhaps previous, and this is just my opinion, not financial advice, what your previous understanding historically of the base fundamental economics that need to be in place are. Because it's completely possible that yes, this is genuine technology. Yes, these are great companies. Yes, this is great infrastructure. Yes, yes, yes. And it's a matter of global national security. And we must at all costs, perhaps, I'm not saying that I completely agree with this. I would once again love us to all get along and work together and save the planet while helping everyone thrive and get access equitably to finance. That's our mission at Peace Through Trade. But what if that's the way that the military and the current administration of not just America, but all G7 are looking at these technologies? What if that's the urgency they're looking at them from, the perspective that they're taking, how they're going to aid, fund, support projects going to the public markets that are involved in this critical infrastructure? And if the answer to that is yes, that's absolutely what they're doing. It's absolutely the nuclear arms race of our time, right? Space-based, quantum, and AGI technologies to get to that AGI first, to get to that quantum applicable, most powerful usage for cybersecurity first, to get the most space-based infrastructure out there and deployed to help all of these things in the West for the United States and G7 first. Well, then that could potentially explain $1.15 trillion market caps, AI data centers, despite their absolutely incredible taxing cost on the environment and financial cost. And it could explain also why the White House and the Department of War are posting, finally, about quantum technologies and what's coming, and why the White House is posting that President Trump is now signing these executive orders. So there's going to be a lot of evolution in that space. We're going to learn a lot more together as a community about quantum. Actually, for those of you that have looked very even minimally at our layer 1, layer 2, or AI white papers on peacethroughtrade.com, you'll know if you're a part of the community that they're not completely, totally finished, completed pieces to the public market. And I've shared with you why that is, and I will continue to share with you on the next updates. We will be sharing them as we get closer once the official ICO date's announced, but there's reasons and a variety of reasons for that. Some to do with security and cybersecurity, and I'll explain more about that behind the scenes, but it's a very interesting time right now to be alive. I, for one, am not worried about AI. I think that AI, blockchain, Web3, quantum are going to provide even better and better solutions. I think we're going to be able to live better in greater harmony, helping nature and our environment thrive. And I think we're actually going to be, although it's always scary, able to share greater prosperity around the planet more so than we ever have before. I know that's a pretty positive outlook, and I know there's a lot of reasons to be afraid and to be negative, especially with all the layoffs happening in AI right now. But I've seen so many instances in the past when we as the species collectively worldwide freaked out over similar things in the past, whether it was the automobile or the motor carriage, whether it was the airplane, whether it was industrial revolution, factories, machinery, all the things, industrial agriculture. We've always thought that our new technological advances would decimate the global economy, would remove jobs from people forever, and it would all be over. And we've thought that many times, and every time we've thought that, it's just simply not been the case. The economics and the productivity and the money have flowed elsewhere, oftentimes places we couldn't have thought beforehand, and everything's worked out. So that being said, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching live. Thanks for sharing the comments and the questions below that I've seen thus far. If you're not yet a member of the community, make sure to go to peacethroughtrade.com, sign up for our newsletter email, check out, you'll get our private official Telegram channel, and stay tuned for the updates. We've been sharing some great progress that we've been making. We're pretty excited about what we've built for consumers. We're very excited also about what we've got going on at the government level already. That is official. And we're really grateful that we've just taken the time over the long term to do this the right way for the long term, for the planet, and for humanity. So thanks for tuning in to Peace Through Trade. We're grateful to have you here, Peacemakers. My name's Harai Beckman, one of the founding partners. I hope you found this of value, and I hope that connection, which is something I've been meaning to write another article about here on X. Thanks for all the support with the last article. That was unreal. Really, really cool. It just takes 4 to 6 hours to do a properly, thoroughly referenced, fact-checked, and cited article. So this stream of about an hour, very much off the cuff, but I'm happy to share with you my perspective and insights on what's coming here. Thanks for tuning in. God bless everyone.